Hi, everybody. We haven't had a whole lot of response with respect to questions this week, but we have had a couple, and they both seem to be basically around the same question. And the question, relatively speaking, is what happens when you have increased perception occur? The dilemma with increased perception is it can be called by many people a lot of different things, and it can be focused on a lot of different things. Ideally, if you are all perfect human beings, when increased perception occurred, you would immediately look at it and say, increased perception. What is it showing me? Oh, it's showing me in areas that I never noticed before. Oh, and some that I did. And, all I have to do is talk directly to my emotions and say, thank you very much. My perception is increased there. You don't have to react. You'll be fine. Yes, I know that you're protecting exactly the way I was before, but I didn't know I was like that before. But I had a little inkling, but not very much. No, it's okay. It's not negative. You're there for me when I need you. You're also there for me when I don't need you. It would be a little bit better if you weren't in the place where I don't need you. That same place, that wonderful place of self-protection, when I didn't need you, just a little less. But nonetheless, let's have a conversation and we'll dialogue about it. Of course, the emotion will say, what is this guy on about? Here I am doing the very best I possibly can to remain exactly the same as I was before, and I am induced to show exactly what I'm seeing. That's the emotion talking. And here he is saying, I don't need to react and engage the way I was before, when he surely knows that I have to do that because I'm trained to do it reflexively. And I'm not bad. As a matter of fact, I'm doing exactly what I was trained to do, and I do it excellently. Here we go back into the other position again, where this poor person, male or female, it doesn't make any difference, of course, you know that, is looking at what it's perceiving and noticing things it never saw before. Or it wants something. It needs to have whatever it thinks it wants. And because it's entitled to get it, because that's the rules and regulations of our own culture and background, the entitlement is expressive and has a great need within to maintain and relate to exactly what you need, and then finding different ways to get it. Something happens to be in your way, get rid of them, get out of the way, and get to do whatever you want to do, because that's the way of the world. That's the way of a very young world. And if you kind of remember our relationship with existence, even though it appears like as if we're really significant, we're very young as a species. That doesn't much matter one way or the other. But nonetheless, recognition of that might be helpful because we're all a part of the same species. Negativity about that doesn't help at all. Doing in some small way something that might be helpful to broadening out that youthfulness a little bit, even if it's only in relationship to how we see things with respect to ourselves, of course, not somebody else, ourselves, might be helpful. Thus, two questions, and here they kind of are. Chris McLaughlin, one of the most sincerest people that I know, says this: I have found myself faced with more of myself lately. What was occasional insights and somewhat manageable, now they seem to come in rapid fire succession. In other words, perceptions. I've taken the defensive posture to retreat and hide, leaving me with a will that is strong and entrenched and unable to move. Well, if you're hiding, it's really good hiding. So you're doing exactly what you're trying to do. Nothing negative there. I'm trying very hard to see this as an opportunity, as a gift, but I'm having some difficulty. I feel that I'm not only working with my will, but my sincerity to continue. This is one of the most difficult things that face any spiritual engagement or any engagement with higher states. Higher states implies more conscious awareness of what's going on internally and externally. In an ideal situation where all of your training says, look at this compassionately, be kind to yourself and respectful. This is just an insight into patterns that have been used so that you can survive and search for a sense of security and true value within yourself. Therefore, there is a protection quotient that occurs. You protect yourself and the training that attempts to protect you. No negativity is attached to this. But also, the problem is you don't perceive that you're actually doing that. And every now and then you do. That every now and then that you do shows an insight into what might be occurring, but it's considered only as a particular perception at a particular time for a particular purpose. And it doesn't happen any other time, only happens then. That's the norm in relationship to an image. That's the norm in relationship to an image that we have of ourselves, and we would hope might be exactly perfectly true. It isn't, of course, but it doesn't mean that you're bad or good because of it. You would be really good if you could never show it to yourself. Not true. You could be really good if you saw it all the time. Not true. It's just there. It's a method of engaging with the world, a system that protects us in relationship to a sense of security that's really truly needed within ourselves to survive our daily world. We have these mechanisms and we have these images, and the need is great to have them, because we also have wishes, wants, and desires that are way, way beyond our need. Perhaps not beyond our wishes. We have beliefs that we know must be true, and they're not necessarily true. There are options of what may be helpful or may not be helpful depending on the time. Also, those wishes, wants, and desires may be something we need, want, depending on the time. Some other times we don't. So that emotional system tries to make sense of things, and it reflexively counts on the experience and the relationship that you have with that experience from the time of your birth. This is fairly logical. To mentally allow yourself to know that it's fairly logical in relationship to helping you to be okay, finding some relative balance as dictated by you in relationship to an unconscious relation with life and existence. So we're then in a process of movement towards broadening out an understanding of what occurs within an individual as they continually engage with broadening their relationship with existence. Not only this life, but existence itself. Which means if you move past this life, it includes other lifetimes. Meaning, you are a conglomerate of relationship, of existences that have occurred in the past, will projectedly occur in the future, provided you don't allow yourself to notice without any negativity or elevation what is actually occurring now. If you uncover what occurs now and try to be respectful of that, but not necessarily aligned with it, you don't have to agree with everything you see, but you don't have to beat up on everything you see. A simple, oh my goodness, I think this is what I do to survive. I think this is the image I use so that it feels more comfortable for me in my relationship with daily life. In seeing this, then you begin to understand that you're in some kind of movement through you as a being in existence. You happen to be from the planet Earth at this particular point. You happen to be male or female. You happen to act out the way you presently do. You have beliefs the way you believe you need to have them. They, I suspect, and you probably suspect, make you feel more comforted and comfortable around your daily life somehow, whatever they may be. Physically, think about this. You're a physical being. No disrespect there. Emotionally, you are an emotional being. Emotion plays a very huge part in our life, whether it be unconscious or insightfully conscious. And mentally, which has a great link with the emotional disposition, not only to protect it, but also to move beyond it as you move into other awarenesses of states that don't necessarily depend on the emotional engagement that you have, which protects the images that you believe are important to you. Remember, not always consciously. Definitely unconsciously, reflexively. No negativity attached to this. None whatsoever. So the pertinent engagement here is, if we reach certain states from time to time that are related directly to a kind of, now I'm going to use Chris's terminology if I can find it, transition points. I like that, Chris. Thank you very much. They're really insightful increases in perception. They allow us to notice something about ourselves without having to protect them. Now, the natural reflex is to protect them, get our way in relationship to the need we have to protect those against those insights, by being negative towards them or being fearful. One of the most disturbing things, and this goes along with Jennifer Butler's questions as well, is the sheer sense of being lonely in our relationship with these points of reference where insight or perception is increased or broadened. I like the term broadened because if you look at it from a perspective of broadening, it means you don't have to negate anything and you don't have to elevate anything. You're in research mode. You're looking. You're trying to understand. You're trying to propose meaning to yourself. And, in fact, purpose. Survival as a purpose is not a negative purpose. But judgment about an action, whether it be positive or negative, is not really insightful. It's more of a protection against noticing insight again in the same place. Because if you notice the inside, you will not want to be devoid of what you were before. So if you notice the inside, it implies within you that something should be adjusted. We have a tendency in our world, it seems, to consider options different than our own, views different than our own, initially at least, subversive to the ones we have. And they're only options. Our process of reaction is stronger than our process of thinking outside what we believe has to be true. That is not a negative thing. It just happens to be self-protective. Protective of the images, once again, that we construct for the purpose of remaining very much close to the same. This has been so helpful to us in preserving our relationship with existence. As you can see when you look around in your home, in your engagement with life, you add things to sophisticate, relatively speaking, the position and place of your relationship with life. These may be very small things, a simple thing. A simple thing like, if there are definitions of how life should be, you take the opposite view. No, I don't think so. Life should be this way. This is normal. God, we went through a lot of this in the 50s, 60s, the 70s. And this was normal. You were never so normal when you thought you were rejecting things. You were never so normal because rejection from generation to generation is the most normal thing that occurs in our particular relationship with our timeline. As we were young, we tended to reject kinda what was given to us as values. We didn't. Energetically, we took on a whole bunch of stuff similar to what was there before. This is kind of a link between one generation and another. We don't notice it. Some of you have even noticed that you act out some of the particular survival systems of your parental background. Both of them. My God, one's not good enough. You do both. Yeah, well, look around you. Everybody that you can see has done the same thing, while believing they didn't. Because our unconscious is so profoundly able to duplicate. And that is a process of basic survival. That enables you to have a sense of being in a place or not. Some of us first-ray souls or first-ray personalities, one could say, have a tendency, or emotional dispositions have a tendency to feel that we're all alone right from the beginning. I know some of you won't like any of Alice Bailey's works. Some of you don't like Blavatsky's works. Some of you don't like Krishnamurti's works. Some of you don't like, oh my God, the list goes on and on and on and on. These are just options. But take a look at them all. Learn a little bit. But take a look at you more. You are so fortunate to have a burst of increased perception. Your reflex to survive always treats it like an impediment. I do not care what you believe. I do not care how you function externally. If you have an increase in perception, it will move you at least towards understanding something within you that would be purposeful to remember and recognize as you engage with life, so you can say something like this: oh my goodness, I noticed that before. Then when someone says, you're really sometimes pretty miserable, you can actually say, I know. I've seen it myself. I don't know where it comes from. I think it's my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother's fault. Grandfather's fault. I don't care which one you choose. And nobody knows them, so it doesn't matter anyway. But maybe it's just you trying to survive. Maybe it's okay. Maybe a dialogue with you. Learning how to be respectful to the form that you have without beating it up, and realizing that that form enables you, if you can pull back from the thing you believe you need to be like, to be worthy of growth. You're already worthy of growth. There are so many things within us all that make us, I'm sorry about this word, imperfect. But most of us have some of these similarities, which are designated imperfections by all who would think an ideal relationship with existence should look like this or that. There's a need to be okay with you. There's a need to be okay with understanding that we are part and parcel of others. Sometimes we even engage like others. Sometimes we disbelieve and believe like others. It makes us feel secure. For you to actually engage, begin to know and understand, means you will not always agree with others. They will not always agree with you. You will not always agree with you. That's a big step. But these perception increases will occur as you begin to perceive. It's not an automatic, oh, I'm better than others now. It's an automatic, oh my goodness, I noticed this, I never saw it before. I wonder how that fits in my personalization of a form that is there to enable me to survive as I grow, as well as my day-to-day. A most fascinating engagement, but a vital one. Have great respect for what other people believe and what you believe. But you don't have to agree with what you believe. And you don't have to agree with what others believe. Meaning, you are creating a forum. A forum. Not a form. A forum on which you can begin to look at you with no disrespect. And you can link up in that forum with higher states of conscious awareness. If it's possible for you to engage with higher states of awareness and look within you with no disrespect to you, just curiosity and looking for meaning and different ways to understand how we function in this world, then it is vital for you to understand that there may be levels of consciousness that can perceive and enable you even more. Perceive you and enable you within you as well as without. Give you an example. If you engage with a person who has more capacity to see within, or have linked up with higher states, they cannot stop themselves from helping you to engage with higher states. Just by their existence alone, energy will flow through them for the purpose of helping you to go beyond the you that you've already set like jelly in your personality orientations. You are set up to fight this tremendously, purposefully. How dare they help you to grow? Oh, by the way, you have forgotten at that particular point that that is your real interest. If it's not, then you don't have a problem. But you do. Don't go around these people. They only help you. And remember, you grow through you. Isn't it wonderful? You didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to say, oh my goodness, I got to stop drinking the wrong kind of coffee. I don't drink coffee, so it just doesn't matter to me, but I did. And boy, there was a right kind of coffee and there was a wrong kind of coffee. Whatever your coffee definition is, whatever that is, whether it's I'm too close to people, I'm too far away from people, I have 47 friends and they only have 41. Whether you're lonely or whether you're not, the worst kind of lonely is being away from higher states. Second only to being involved with higher states. Now what that means really is you're trying to figure stuff out through your own experiential bias. And it's not negative. Once you figure something out, and you've got it figured out well, and it's all together, and you're respectful of whatever that figuring out is, it is guaranteed you will have an insight, because you are sincere about what you think you figure out. it is guaranteed that you will have a defense of what you'd figured out. So you're never going to lose your capacity to claim and remain the same as you think you need to be right from your perspective. It goes with the territory. And if someone gets in your way, God help them. It's said and talked about a whole lot that this is the time of groups engaging with growth. We've come up a long way through the last, let's say, 500-600 years when we've had another growth spurt in the mind with respect to what we understand historically. And this so-called growth spurt has been fraught with emotional defense of what was before, just yesterday. Any yesterday has been defended like crazy when a new idea came forward. So you are dealing with the same thing as our culture deals with. Your relationship with needing to get your way, to be more right than somebody else, is highly valued from your perspective. But there's an emptiness about it. No matter how able we become, in the world of honesty deep within, you know you're missing something. But you're in a movement towards gaining access to another level of something, whatever that may be for you. If it's for a position in place in our world, if you take a good look, you've been trained to do that from the time of your birth. To make a spot, make a place. If it's, and that is related to competition, I would say. And to some degree, cooperation. You need the cooperation of others to enable you to get to a place where you feel more superior than you were yesterday. If it's only schoolwork, somebody had to give you a mark, so you needed cooperation. You think you got there on your own? 15 people could get a different mark with the same paper. That's not fair. No, it's not fair. Or it doesn't matter. It's how it works. The impact of a person's personality has a strong effect on another person. You can say that one over and over and over again. So what are you preparing your personality for? Are you okay to prepare it and still use all of the ins and outs and the same things as you did before for a deeper level of insight, of perception, knowing full well there's no idealistic perfection in this. It's a continual engagement with a broadening of perception of frequency and frequencies of various types that coagulate, come together in a gel, sort of, hold its position, a little bit movable, and at the same time, you move towards, in a second, understanding what that gel's about, so that you can release some of the tensions in the recognition and the realization that it doesn't have to remain exactly the same. Others may want you to be the same so that they feel more comfortable in how they engage with and perceive you and assess you. It makes them feel comforted. The same is true of when they're looking at themselves. So can you look at yourself, feel the discomfort, and realize some of that discomfort is brought on by the realization that you are changing? Or the realization that you're like other human beings. I'll say that in a whisper, even though it's a false whisper. All that you experience, relatively speaking, has been experienced by others. You can allow yourself to be okay with that. It will give you deep understanding of the dilemmas that others face in relationship to change. You face those same dilemmas, but you are an energetic being. So you can attempt to use energy to be helpful to you. How you do it will depend on what you've decided is the right way for you to see the process of existence. Some find it easy to engage with a higher state and ask for help, knowing full well they probably won't understand the help they get unless it touches them where they are currently perceiving. In a way that doesn't disturb how they are currently acting. And take great value in the fact that they should get their way. I would agree with that. It's always nice to get your way. The dilemma is that what your purpose is? It's not about, well, let's say, is it really about engaging with higher states? Better it be slowly, but firmly in motion, so that you have relative timelines, so that you can feel comforted at least by the fact that you're trying to keep up. Not treating yourself badly, not elevating yourself superior to others, although that's our tradition, and reaching out to prove it in whatever way that we can find valuable within ourselves. But we will do it whatever which way we decide is the most poignant option for us. It's a free-for-all out there. It's a free-for-all in here. Attempting to be honest with yourself causes all kinds of problems. It also causes you to notice when you don't agree with you. And when you do, my goodness, do I really agree? Ask the questions. My goodness, I don't know any other way to see things. That's an honesty. The emphasis is on us beginning to mature. Don't ask me what that means. It seems to have different definitions almost daily. Rules and regulations crop up. Dilemmas crop up. Survival crops up. Being frustrated with not getting your way crops up. Entitlement crops up. This is part of the human condition. We are human beings. But the nature of increased perception is also used relative to the extensions of the human senses. If you are clairvoyant, meaning if you perceive into the personality or beyond, whatever that means, depending on a belief system, because you will be involved in clairvoyance, for example, relative to a belief system. I am sorry to say that that is true until you become not as interested. You want to know what's real and what's true. And I'm not saying the belief systems are not real and not true that you're following or you engage with. But if things are slightly different, wouldn't you rather know that and move towards seeing the differences? But that means you'll be alone. Can you handle the depth of inquiry into existence where the answers may not comply with the groupthink of an idea or a belief? It's very lonely. But it is not a desperate situation. These inquiries are really part of the dilemma of increased perceptions. And it's worth the trip. Because every trip you make, not just to be different, that's not the trip. To inquire deeper through your own individual research within and soften down the intense need to remain the same. It's no easy task. But great respect, from my perspective, is needed for that particular action. You need to be the one that gives it to you. If you wait for others to do so, you'll wait a long time. Because they will be honestly, sincerely believing that it's not possible that what you are engaging with individually as a growing being could be true, because it doesn't comply necessarily exactly with their belief. They will one day know that they will not comply with their belief, and neither would you comply with yours. And this is an important thing to remember, because a sense of movement towards a different perceptive state is influenced by the need to remain exactly the same as you've been trained. most comforting thing that I could ever come up with in relationship to internal development is that there is newness to deal with all the time. And there is also a kind of sense of comfort, respect, and gentleness that comes within. Yes, including the tensions of an aspect of us that is really important and valuable to us. And that is a certain amount of need to remain the same enables us to keep a kind of balance. And that's highly charged emotionally, with an aspect of mental acuity and reflex expression on the mental level that links with the emotion to help us to survive. Also, the mind opens somewhat, and an aspect of noticing our actions, even when we're expressing them, becomes stronger. And remember the old esoteric orientation: whatever you focus on becomes stronger. Energy follows thought. Intensity follows thought. But it's not only thought, it's action. It's non-action. The need to be sure of what lies within. And that is an aspect of that universality that is profound. And the great need to recognize that our human nature is also an aspect of a balancing act that helps us to continue slowly, but continually. At some point, this is a relationship directly with the sense of, if I can say it again, transition points. Thank you, Chris. Insightful perception that is not geared, because it's a mental facility, it's not geared to negate, it's geared towards perception. Stimulates looking for meaning. Recognizes that you are capable of finding it in the terms that relate to the images that you defend. Initially, these images begin to shift and change. They even move into a point where only you are right. Then they begin to move out of that point where you know there's a multiplicity of optional engagements with higher states, all being valued. The discernment should be focused on not the details of what's right versus wrong, because we really don't know. Perhaps that was not the best thing to say out loud. But the need to continue and go beyond what we believe has to be true by being and doing, living in our relationship with existence. Living is quite interesting. Caring for people changes too. You find out that you can care massively for people, but it hasn't got anything to do with the original concept of loving that relate to our focus on the physical form. It has a lot to do with the breadth of capacity that we have to engage with links related to frequency and higher states. We get a bit mixed up in this stuff because our focal point is really the physical form, whether we like to admit that or not. Just looking at my watch, don't want to go over time. I wish both of these people, Jennifer and Chris, good fortune, because their perception levels have increased somewhat and they are seeing things beyond what they could see before. How you look at it is with no negation. Use energy. Use a light map. But you have to be willing to be okay with change. Otherwise, what you focus on will be the thing that occurs. You can say with your mouth one thing, it's what you do, what you look at inside. You're learning how to be honest with yourself. It doesn't negate you. My goodness, it puts you in an alignment with a very high state. Be kind to yourself and respectful. That form is valuable. Disagreement with it is valuable. Agreement with it is valuable. Broadening it out, highly valuable. Being respectful of the difficulty, the degree of difficulty that entails, very respectful. Try to find love and caring for the responses that you have, even the disturbing ones, because it makes you vulnerable. And vulnerability sometimes leaves you open to understanding something different than what you could before. Thank you very much. Wish everyone well.